welcome back. So good to see you. Welcome back to another episode of Expert Mentors Live. Chauncey, this is our fourth go around. You saw there in the little intro who closed out that little.
I was in the intro. That's so cool.
So cool. Like we jumped right in as soon as we got on before we hit go and already got right into it. So I love connecting with you. Love talking with you and really around kind of the whole pivoting. What is pivoting? What does that even mean? I gotta confess a little bit. So we there towards the kind of the tail end of the NAEA days, and we all had little sayings. There was little sayings, and we had a shirt design that had a dog, right? Like squirrel. The dog's chasing the squirrel, but it said pivot. So like I get it.
Cool.
Like when you said, "Hey, we're going to talk about pivoting and why it's important," I was like, it brought up a little PTSD maybe, but hey, we'll rock in here with you a little bit.
I love that so much. I love that.
So cool. So Chauncey, what the heck is going on? What have you been up to? I know you've got a plate full of stuff, and you're kind of joking, just part of the ADHD. You got to keep yourself, moving in different directions. So yeah, what's happening?
So, since the last time I was on here with you, I've wrapped the television show. So we're no longer filming that show. We wrapped that around this time last year. And we've just been rocking and rolling with our flipping business. And then the flipping business kind of really made me lean into this whole pivot thing, which, flipping was fun. It was my creative outlet. It was very profitable for us because we are very process driven people. So we didn't get into the business and just started flipping houses and just hope for the best. We built out a duplicatable process, but because we built out that process, we were then able to build all of these ancillary services and businesses and build out this vertically integrated system that has now become our bread and butter. And that's where we've been spending most of our time. So yeah, so if you see me online right now, most of what I'm talking about is teaching realtors how to get into investing, dip their toe in investing, leverage their commissions for things other than just going out and buying a nice car or purse when they get a fat commission check, and teaching them how to get into this world of investing, and ultimately really maximizing their earnings potential.
Yeah. And, we were chatting a little bit, just fewer transactions, obviously, we saw that last year and, right. Statistically, we should see an increase. However, we'll see, right? Time will tell to kind of see how things play out. But things are taking longer. And the days of I could have a conversation with you and we could be at the closing table in 30 days. It's just those days are pretty much gone, right? We're getting back to the longer lifetime cycle, the cash conversion cycle. Things are just taking longer. So I love, to your point, to maximize the opportunity. You're doing the thing, you're acquiring the opportunity, really being able to maximize. What does that look like right now and moving into the future from what you're seeing, what you're doing, what you're coaching, what you're teaching on?
So it's interesting. What I did about a year and a half ago is I sat down and I looked at our business, and I did this little exercise, and I encourage agents to do this. And I actually just put up a video on TikTok about this, which is take a sheet of paper and write your name in the middle of that paper and circle it. And then I want for you to think about all of the people in a real estate transaction that ultimately you're the nucleus of, right? Like, you're going to bring the client, you're going to get the ball rolling on this transaction, but write down all the different industries and people that are going to get paid from you bringing that transaction to the table. Mm-hmm. And then write down or circle all of those that you're actually getting paid on. And the chances is you're going to be lucky if it's one outside of the nucleus. And to me, that's just a waste. It was totally a waste. And so looking at our flipping business, and understanding that, okay, when I go and buy a house and I renovate this house, all of these people are going to get paid from the time that I buy it until I sell it. So why can't I figure out a way, instead of constantly being on this hamster wheel of figuring out how to get more deals and how to do more and going wide, how about I go deep, which is something that, Jay Kinder, that you guys have always preached, even with building out our revenue share groups and doing different things like that, was, instead of going wide, you want to go deep. And I really leaned into owning our process. And so every step of the process, I wanted to have my hand in it in some way. It may not be that I'm the jack of all trades and I'm building out, each individual business, but partnering up with people and having some sort of way to capitalize on as many steps as possible in a process that you are triggering, that you are initiating, I think is very, very important for realtors, especially in today's climate where everything is taking longer and there is just less of it.
Chauncey, so the question that I want to ask you is how do you determine what's a fair value exchange within that process? And you look at, who's getting a bite of that apple every time that you do the transaction. For example, you find the flip. Now you got all of the trades, everybody that's going to get paid off of that, the whole ripple effect from that. And even as working with a buyer or a seller, when we get them into getting them through the process and getting them into a home or getting their home sold, there's all of the people that get a bite of that apple. And it's always been, to the point of like, listen, you are either sweat equity, probably some check equity to acquire that opportunity.
Right.
And then you're just going to give that to somebody else and they're going to get paid and
Right.
You're not getting anything, but you spent the money to acquire that opportunity, be it through your sweat, your effort, or you're paying for the opportunities, you're paying for the leads, you're paying for the lead systems, and you're just going to give it away. So that's the first, right? The mental shift is like, oh, wow, right? I am spending time and money to acquire that. But now, okay, they're getting a bite. How do I get compensated? And what is a fair compensation trade for me giving you that opportunity?
I think
How do you evaluate that?
I think that's a great question. I think that it starts with actually integrating all of these things into your process. We were talking before we went live about building out a framework, building
Right.
out a duplicatable, a proven process that you have. And I think it's really more about integrating all of these other variables into your process. And when you integrate things into your process, then those other variables become dependent on your process. And at that point, when things are dependent on you and on your process and on your machine working, when they are just a cog in the wheel that you've created, then ultimately you set your own damn price because they understand that they wouldn't exist without you. And that's ultimately what we've done, kind of with our business. And so to give like an example with building out these verticals, because I feel like we're talking almost in code here. So with the flipping business, acquiring a property, most people that get into the business are going to use a wholesaler. They're going to have someone that just brings them a deal. Well, instead of doing that, I made acquisitions a part of our process. Now, do we take deals in from outside sources? Of course.
Sure.
But to have a duplicatable process built in there, then that's a part of it. And then the hard money lending, the commercial lines of credit, like we figured out a way to tap in and be able to actually provide lending for others. And in providing lending for others, then now I get a discount on my lending. So it's helping me twofold. So whether I'm actually involved in this process for myself or not, like I'm going to profit off of it. The construction part, instead of hiring a general contractor and having their crews work, we own that part of the process. So whether I'm flipping my house or I'm flipping a house for you or even just doing a retail job, I now have a construction company. I now have design. I now, if I'm going to be ordering cabinets and countertops and flooring, I have direct contacts with wholesalers, with wholesale companies and suppliers instead of having to go to Home Depot and paying a markup. So essentially, I've removed the middleman from a lot of pieces, and the things that I couldn't remove the middleman from, I've just integrated those services so hardcore into my process that they're coming to me every day saying, when do we have more? And they understand my value, and I can pretty much name whatever stake that I want in that because they largely wouldn't exist without me.
So what is a good stake without like taking too much from them to where it tarnishes the relationship, right? At some point you're like, man, this isn't a win for me. I feel like Chauncey's winning more than me. So how do you value to where, hey, this is good. This is good for me. This is good for them. Hey, let's keep doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's I really think it's all just dependent upon the relationship, and it just depends on how much you're putting into it. It's no different than with realtors when we send a referral out to somebody. All we've done is made an initial conversation, and then we pass that referral on, and then we're like, I want 25 or 30%. It's an arbitrary number. We haven't really done anything for it besides spark up a conversation. And so for those, 10, 25%, whatever that end buyer feels like is the value on it. But I don't necessarily know that there's a number, but I know that you need to position yourself so that you can at least even have the conversation, because if you're not in a position, then the number is always going to be zero.
Right.
So even if it's 10% or 20% or 40%, that's something that you'll just have to determine based on who you're talking to and the process.
Yeah, I 100%. So that was always kind of our rule of thumb. We defaulted back to always to the 25%, because everybody, especially dealing in the real estate industry, everybody kind of understood that, right? Even if you were a trade, yeah, they were familiar with that number. Oh yeah, 25%. I've heard that. Yeah, that makes sense. So how we would look at it is like, okay, well, what are they making off of the deal? Like, what is their service? Even all the way down to the carpet cleaning guy, right? And he charges $100, for example, right, to come in and do his service. Well, 25% $25. Is it worth $25?
Right.
And then, you look at some of these other trades that we would look at, and we would be like, okay, well, they probably don't want to give up the 25% or $25, but they would be willing to do something. And what we found is that we could just do a trade and like, hey, I'm going to need my stuff cleaned a couple times a year. Could you just hook us up a couple times a year, and I'll keep hooking you up? And so there's a lot, we did a lot of deals, just handshake off of that type of an arrangement, right? So find the value exchange based upon, like you said, I mean, when you're cranking and you have a lot of opportunities and you're able to acquire a lot of opportunities, you can demand a little bit more. Absolutely. And so I think it's super, super smart for agents to be thinking about that. These bigger teams, and I've been on Matt and DJ here in Pittsburgh. I've been on them pretty hardcore on like, listen, guys, I mean, what do we know with older cities, older communities? There's always going to be plumbing issues. There's always going to be, HVAC heater issues, cold climate. There's always going to be those type of issues. Why not own a stake in one of those companies that you're sending out all the time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so important. And realtors just are not having those conversations. But I also think a lot of them are not having the conversations because they haven't built a process or a framework of value. And that's the root of the problem, right? Is they don't have a framework. They don't have a community that they can say, hey, X, Y, and Z vendor, I'm going to plug you into this community. And now you're going to be in front of this many people and I can they don't have any of that. And so I think more now than ever, it's so important for realtors to be building out communities and building out real processes and frameworks for their business, or else they're just not going to make it.
Back to your point, go deeper in the relationship.
Absolutely.
Go a lot deeper in the relationship. I love that. So we were chatting before we came on. I was sharing with you, because kind of get into, and then we'll get into kind of the pivoting and what that means and how you're applying and you're using it. But back to your point, I was sharing with you, I'd have to look it up. I don't know what the exact book title is, but Vern Harnish is one of our longtime mentors, Mastering the Rockefeller Habit, Scaling Up. And he does a weekly newsletter that comes out. I've been subscribed to it probably for 14 years, maybe that long, 15 years, been subscribed to it. Comes out every week. And he, at the end of every year, he drops his top 5 book recommendations to read, if you haven't read, going into the new year, based upon each of the, kind of the pillars in his methodology. And one of the ones from this past year was a book that they did the research and the study on what were the common characteristics of the top companies in the Fortune 500 that bootstrapped, that didn't take any capital to be able to grow. And the number one thing is that every one of them had one proven sales process that had a high close ratio. One process. Yep. And so I think back to kind of what you're saying, back to your point, being able to have, okay, raw material, we create a raw material, we create an opportunity, we create a lead, we create a contact, we give them, or we provide value in exchange, we get a phone number, right?
Right.
We have the objective of a funnel is to get a phone number. We got a phone number. Then what happens, right? And then, is there, what's the value add? What's the, the pre-close video? What's the conversation all the way through? Like, what is that proven one process that has the highest close ratio? And so it was just extremely valuable understanding is that quit dabbling and doing too many things. What's the one consistent process that you can run everybody through? And then it doesn't matter, to your point, let's shift over here. Let's shift over here. But it doesn't matter. We still have our process that we're going to run things through.
The framework never changes. The framework never changes. But that's the number one reason that agents, are struggling right now is they just don't have a framework. So they're flailing because things are different. The environment of real estate just feels different. And they're having a really, really hard time because they don't really have anything to plug and play into. And once you have that system, once you have that framework, you can literally pivot and do anything, and you just keep using it over and over and over, and it works. So I think that that's going to be the key to unlocking sustainability and success in today's real estate environment.
Do you want to walk through kind of what you see as kind of it doesn't have to be like 1,000 moving parts. Like, what is kind of your simple framework, your proven process that just, I mean, we don't have to go too deep with it, but just kind of certain points that it transitions from. What does that look like for you?
Oh, that's big. That is such a loaded question. Well, because I'm not, retail sales much anymore. So my business is very, operations focused. And so let me kind of go at it, as a realtor, and what I tell people as I'm speaking to them as a realtor, and I'm not sure if I've ever talked about this on one of our other episodes that we've done. But it's as simple as this. Your real estate business is a freaking store. It's a store. And everyone looks at these service-based businesses and they get lost on what they're supposed to do. And it's because there's not a tangible place for them to land. But if they start looking at their real estate business as a store, and think about if they were to have signed a lease for $5,000 a month for a storefront because they wanted to open a damn shoe store or clothing store, no one would have to walk them through what type of framework and what the steps are to building it. First thing they're going to do standing on the curb is look at this empty shell of a store, and they're going to say, I need a sign. I need for people to understand my name. That's, the marketing side. They, need store hours on the door. That's my operations timeline. That's my time blocking. How do I get customers through the door? Also that's going to be the marketing. Once they come through the door, where's my inventory going to come from? That's, the lead generation process. So I think that it starts with understanding that's what you're ultimately building. And then within that store, you're going to have a ton of different processes, and it's all about really perfecting it and understanding what you're actually going to do, and then where you need to plug in those resources that, again, you're going to be able to take a piece of, because every store has multiple departments. There's accounts payable, there's customer service, there's accounts receivable, there's operations, there's the buyers, and there's inventory, and there's all of these pieces. And your real estate business is the same exact freaking concept. And you need to just sit, write it all out, understand, all of the pieces of how the larger operation is going to work, and then break down all of the steps of how do you get someone from walking through the doors of your store to the damn cash register. And once they check out, how are you staying in front of them? What's that process? And then just build that out, and then just run it every single day consistently. And however you've got to pivot in your business, you just kind of plug and play with that same system.
Chauncey, I love that. I like setting back and kind of thinking through that's it. Right? Like, everybody can grasp their head around their favorite restaurant, their favorite store that they go into, and being able to start that, with a blank, like a blank box. And okay, we're going to build this out. But if you had to rebuild your favorite place that you either, shop for clothes, shop for shoes, favorite restaurant, think through that. Right. And, it's all by yourself until you've got so many customers coming through the door that you can't do it all. And then you start to say, okay, well, where do you need to be? That's the most valuable to the process of delivering that steak, or delivering those, selling those shoes, or whatever the case may be. That is such a cool framework to be able to think through, and how, to design and redesign, the agents, their business moving into the new year. And it's like, listen, think about your business. I mean, what's missing? If you don't have traffic coming through, what's missing? Like, what do you not have? What's not going on? So I love that. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. So just start thinking about it like your store. And that's how I thought about my flipping business, and now moving more into, the interior design space and just doing all of these different things. That's how I think. I've got to build out a store for every single thing that I do, and then plug and play all of those missing pieces.
So let's talk about pivoting. What is, when you say that, what does that mean?
I think for realtors, it's very, very difficult for us. So I'll tell you this. This year, actually, it was the beginning of the year. So the first week of this year, I made a post on social media, because I'd gone through every year at the beginning of the year. I go through all of my social media profiles and I update my branding, because I normally do a photo shoot in December. So I update my pictures and I change my colors. And this year I did something rad. I took, because I always struggle when you update your bio, you only have so many characters. And I always struggle because the very first thing that I always put is realtor. And then I put all of these other things that I am. So then I'm a house flipper, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I'm interior designer, I do all of these things. And I ran out of room. And I had to figure out what I was going to take out. And the hardest thing for me to do was take out the word realtor. And I took the word realtor out, not because I'm not licensed anymore. I'm a licensed realtor, but that's just not my focus anymore, is residential retail real estate. It's just not. And that was so difficult for me to do. And I made a post about it, and I said, finally, I did it. I'm doing all of these other things. And I think that a lot of realtors that will kind of resonate with them, because a lot of them do some fantastic things outside of just typical retail real estate. But our identities are so caught up in our production, and our identities are so caught up in our units sold, and in saying that I'm a multi-million-dollar producer, and having clients, that we almost hold ourselves back from a lot of other things that are actually our gifts that we could be giving to the world, because we're so caught up in the whole realtor thing. So when I say pivot, I'm not saying abandon real estate. Real estate is the nucleus of what you're doing. We should all be encouraging everyone to continue with transactions and keep this train moving. But it is okay to leverage your knowledge in real estate, your network in real estate, and pivot to some other areas in the business that you just may find is your home more than where you are in residential sales. And that was a lesson that I've been learning over the last few years, but I've just been so afraid to let go of. I'm a realtor, and I'm a realtor first, that I really struggled with that. And so pivoting for me is really just encouraging people to dabble in some other things, and that it's okay to do that. It's okay to give yourself permission to do that.
Yeah, you're so spot on with the identity, and I think it's maybe redefining what success is to them.
Yeah.
And I think they get so latched in. Oh, if I'm not chasing this, that's not success. Chasing more transactions, more of that. And, Kinder and I, October was 20 years together.
Wow.
And so did some, reflecting leading up to that, coming out of the end of the year, into this new year. And I looked through it through a couple lenses, one as a coach, looking through the lens as a coach, and thinking to myself, how would I coach these two 26, 27, 28-year-old knuckleheads? And I would have been really adamant on not chasing status.
Oh.
And that was kind of a downfall of ours. And one of the things that kind of our experience, and especially for me, being in the number 2 position, second in command, that chasing status will set you back decades.
Ooh.
And so what I would have coached us on and would have been around, you guys understand process, everything you and I are talking about. We understand process, we understand, but what is success? And I would have pushed us on success of being more towards finding our freedom instead of chasing status.
Yes.
And 27, 28-year-old, 2 guys and that competitive.
You just out here hustling. Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. And so it's easier looking back, but I really would have, obviously you and I wouldn't be on this call if it wasn't for that. So it really is, I mean, everything happens for a reason, but really looking back and being able to convey that message. And it's exactly what you're saying, right? It's like, get a framework, get a process, and go where your passion is and what you want success to be.
100%. And I've learned that, and it's been fabulous. And I'm in a really happy spot where I am now. And I really am encouraging so many other agents to do the same. Like, it's so important.
Do you go kind of where your heart goes, to where your gut goes, or is there indicators, or there's things that you pay attention to, like, oh, there might be an opportunity here? How do you kind of look to where you want to give your attention?
I tend to stay. I never veer too far off the ship. Okay, so I stay in the real estate realm in what I'm doing, but then I just kind of dabble again in all of the different areas. So whether that's, I need leads, so then I'm going to dabble a little bit into running ads and agency. I need design, I'm going to dabble in that instead of having to hire an outside designer. Like, maybe I'm good at that, I'm going to dabble in staging. And so as I'm dabbling in the different areas of what my business needs, I find, and I have found over the years, like, where I'm really good and where I belong, and then all of the other parts of it and what I enjoy. And then all of the other parts are the things that, I'm just not fooling with anymore. And I think that is the trick to building a business that gives you a feeling of freedom, and a business that feels fulfilling beyond just financial. Is the business is still there, all the pieces is still moving, like it's there, but I am focused on these particular parts of the business that then allow me to still have the financial success that I want, but I'm working specifically in these certain parts of the business. And what I have found is that I'm very creative. I mean, I've always known that I'm creative, and it's typically come out through social media. And that's why I ended up kind of, on television, which is basically creating content on a larger scale. But now it's more design and staging, and it's on that side of the business, and creating content on a larger scale with building out my TikTok and my YouTube and things like that. And so creativity is driving my business from that perspective, but I don't fool with the money anymore. I don't want to deal with that part. I don't want to raise capital. I don't want to pay people. I don't want to deal with any of that crap. And so, again, it's allowed me to settle in my business, and the business is still running, and it's still doing great financially, but I'm focused on my one area. And I'm okay now with saying, I don't even list my own dang flips. I have an agent for that. You know why? Because I'm not the best damn listing agent. Like, I'm just not. That's not my thing. And it's okay to say that, and work in your business in the capacity that you like.
I love that. So for you, is it more that, so it's the gives you energy or takes energy? Is it more fulfilling? I mean, at what point, it's not making money, but it is very fulfilling and it's giving me energy. Do you still stay there? And then it's like, all right, I need to get somebody else. Like, I got the agent to handle this. Like, I need somebody else to handle this, but I'm going to stay right here because this is giving, allowing me to stay creative. It's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And then the money will come.
Also helping us make money. A big part of the business, is the fact that the product that I'm able to create is a lot more creative than the competition. But if I would have just focused on what I thought I had to focus on, which is just selling houses and just the listing process and the acquisitions process, if that's what I focused on, because that's what everybody tells you have to focus on, then I would not have discovered that I have this knack for, building out really cute spaces and cranking out a really pretty product that then makes people want to send their grandma's house to us because we have more integrity over the other guys that are just going to buy it and paint everything gray. That it's going to get us a following in our area of people that literally follow our properties, and they, realtors that are constantly bringing us buyers because they know that we put out a quality product. So again, I'm working in the capacity of the business. The business is still making the money, but I have figured out a way to tap into my business in a way that is a lot more valuable than what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And now this is something that I actually enjoy.
How do you give yourself permission to do that? I think that's where a lot of people, yeah. So it's the failure piece, right? That they're so afraid of failing to even try anything. Oh, I got a little momentum here. Like I don't want to step over there and fail. How do you give yourself permission to move in that direction?
It's hard. I don't even answer for that because I struggled with that for so long, John. I remember calling my good buddy Nick Good, and I was almost in tears, when I started just even pivoting out of production and just pivoting more into the coaching space and the mentoring space and building out, a large team and speaking. And I didn't feel like I deserved to be in that space. Because I thought that my job is just to sell houses. Like you're just a realtor. And so I struggled with that for years until finally I was just like, screw it. But it took a long time. And I don't know what light bulb moment happened. It just happened over time, but it was very, very difficult. It was.
Yeah. So I remember, at Gove's first build event, saw you over there leaning against the wall, trying to, blend in and kind of sink into the wall and disappear. And, and for me seeing, just having conversations with you and just seeing your presence and, I can just feel your confidence, but you didn't feel that at that time. And I think there's a lot of people feel that way. Right. And I don't know if it's the fake it till you make it, but you brought yourself, and then all of a sudden I can see just in our conversations over the years how that confidence has grown, and you just have really become okay with who you are, and you're going to go and do what you want. And so it was just a process. Was it just time? Was it just more time. Reps?
Yeah, it was just time. And it was hard. And having conversations with people that, are telling you that you can't do this and that you're focused on the wrong thing. Like it was really, really tough. But I'm glad that I kept pushing and kept pushing myself into these uncomfortable spaces. And yes, I do remember being at that build event and I was leaned up against the wall and you came over and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I got on the damn stage and talked in front of 10,000 people. Like it was terrifying, but it's just a process and it's going to take time. But the number one thing that you have to do is let go of your ego. You have to, none of it even starts until you let go of your ego. But that was even a problem that I had coming over to EXP. I had my own little boutique brokerage before I joined EXP, and I wasn't making any money, John. The year that I came over, I made $21,000 in my brokerage. I had like 10, 12 agents. I was producing, and it was flat fee because who's going to really pay me anything outside of that? I don't have any resources or any buying power behind me. I'm just a one, person trying to run this brokerage. And I only made $21,000 from my agents in that brokerage once I boiled all of my numbers down. And it took me probably 6 months to say, okay, I'm going to walk away from this and then go over to this other place, and immediately built my revenue share group and blew that out of the water. But I couldn't even let that go because it was my ego of saying that's my name on the door. That's my brokerage. It's my thing. And until we can learn to kind of really let go of bad ideas and sometimes let go of good ideas, then you can't change.
Was that just a moment for you, or was it just maturity? Was it just growth? What was it that just like, okay, this has got to go. This is what's holding me back.
Yeah, it was definitely growth. It was definitely just maturity and growth. And it just took time for me to figure it out and say, be honest with myself, stop lying to myself. And so just growth and time, maturity.
How critical or how important was maybe you pouring into others and seeing kind of starting to see yourself in them, and then you're giving that advice and you're like, I need to take some of this medicine myself.
That was big. That was definitely big. I did not and it's interesting that you'd say that because I was talking to someone else about this, an agent that I saw grow that's been with me for the last 4 or 5 years. And we were having this conversation, and that I saw a lot of myself in her, and I would get really frustrated, and kind of coaching her and mentoring her through where she is has gotten me where I am now.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes somebody else like holding a mirror up to yourself for you to understand that you're the problem. And so, yeah, definitely coaching and mentoring and training helped me be very introspective, because I saw myself in a lot of those people, and they got on my
Mhm.
nerves. And so, and so I was like, you know what? You're getting on my nerves, but you remind me of me. That means I'm getting on my own damn nerves. I need to fix myself
Yeah.
too. And so that
Yeah.
helps. That's a really good tactic, is help others and
You
you'll see yourself.
it it's, one of the most favorite concepts and so important for everybody to kind of embrace is from, Frank Shamrock in his MMA studio. And when you would go in, he would have this concept of the plus, minus, and equal. And day one, he'd be like, listen, you got to find a plus. You got to find somebody that you look up to. That's a higher belt that you can model after, that you look up to, that can possibly mentor you. You got to find a minus. You got to find somebody that you can pour into, somebody that you can mentor, somebody that you're learning and you're giving. And it's like, well, I'm brand new, right? So even think in the real estate industry, well, I'm brand new. What can I, like, I just got my license. What can I pour into somebody? And it's like, well, listen, how did you pass your real estate test? What did you think about? How come you chose to get into this industry? You can pour into somebody that's just thinking about signing up for classes. So you can find a minus. So you can teach and pour into other people. And then you got to find an equal, somebody that's going to run with you, that's going to be your accountability partner, that like you guys are texting each other at the end of the day. Did you do what you said you were going to do? If not, what's the penalty? And I thought that was like
I love
one of
that.
the plus, minus, and equal. Who's your plus in any equity of life, right? In your health, in your relationships, in your business, who's your plus? Who's your minus? Who's your equal? And when you get that figured out, because I know you were pouring into people, you were mentoring them, and I know what it did for me. And I remember like when I first started coaching back in 2012. So February of 2012 was my first one-on-one coaching, like paid coaching. And I remember going through that time because I was really, really dialed in on the brokerage side of things. We were humming. We really had it streamlined, dialed in. We were doing everything. We're doing flips. We had developments. We were doing new construction. We owned multiple companies. We had to, because of the market we were in, right? And I think that's kind of to your whole point of what you're saying. We're kind of in a tough market, and you got to look at where are all the opportunities that you can tap into. But I remember when I first started coaching, and I was like, man, I feel like I'm getting dumber. And and it was just frustration, but I think it was a lot of ego. And my
Yeah.
ego getting in the way of a coach and driving, instead of like, listen, I'm not the hero here. I'm here to pour into you and see you grasp and make the changes. But what I found when I give back, when I coach, when I teach, it's fulfilling, but it also makes me look in the mirror
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
and dial it in moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that the one thing that there was a moment that my husband made me understand in coaching that was really kind of a pivotal point for me. I had a full day of coaching clients, and they were all realtors, and I had so much anxiety built up, and I was just really freaked out, and I was almost in tears. And he's like, "Babe, what's wrong?" And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm giving them enough. And he said, "Babe, your job as a coach is not to constantly feed people trick plays. Your job as a coach is all the boring stuff. What do
Mhm.
coaches do? They make you condition. They make you run laps. They make you do drills. They make you, just work on yourself and do all of the boring, repetitive stuff. And you have anxiety because you're constantly trying to feed people trick plays. And there are only so many trick plays.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying that to me. And I was like, you know what? You're right. But I was looking at it the same way. So I was very introspective. That was me feeling like I had to give people trick plays because that's what I wanted. Because I wanted instant gratification from anything that I looked at, from any coach that I talked to, from any training that I attended. I needed something instant to fix what was going on. And the reality is none of it fixes immediately. There is no, quick pill or button that's going to fix anything. And so that was something that I learned, introspectively through coaching. And so I definitely think that helped me kind of wrangle in a lot of my issues too.
What great advice. That is so true, so spot on. And what timely advice too, right? When you were wrestling with it and being able to paint that picture for you to be able to be like, got it. Like that is so powerful. It really is.
Yeah,
It is that good.
I was like, I'm out of trick plays. What else do I tell them to do?
Well, then
It's
it's a slippery slope too, right? When you're thinking that way, because then now you're like, well, I'm not valuable. And it's like, hold on. You're
Correct.
extremely valuable. Extremely
Correct.
valuable. Yeah, it's so
Correct.
good. So Chauncey, so looking in kind of where you've navigated and kind of where you've pivoted and where you're going. But for most, agents just still focused on, trying to open up the value, but they're really dependent upon, sellers, buyers, trying to recruit, grow the organization. What advice would you, make sure that, hey, listen, you need to have this foundation before you do anything else moving into the new year? What is that?
Build out your store.
Yeah.
Build out the store. That's it. There's nothing else. And just like stores get resets and stores change things around, stores change where they're getting their inventory from, stores change their employees, stores change their prices, stores change everything about their look. They change their signs, their look. Fix your store. You need to start looking at yourself as a business, in that sense, and that you are a store, and fix it. And if you remember at that Gove event that we're talking about, that's what I talked about on stage, that I built my revenue share out as a revenue share store. It's legitimately how I picture everything that I do. And I think if agents start looking at their business in that capacity, whether it's their rev share side of the business or the actual retail side of the business, then they can fix everything.
So good. Chauncey, you're amazing. And, we were chatting before, and just your growth and your evolution is really inspiring. And so you really embody what this whole Expert Mentor series has been about, and really just pouring back in and giving at a super high level. And I can't thank you enough for carving out the time and jumping in and adding a massive amount of value as always.
Well, thank you for having me. And hopefully you guys focus on building out your damn store. Get to it.
Build out the store. Awesome. Chauncey, thank you. Thank you guys. We'll see you.